Okay, Vicky, so thank you for doing this.
You're very
Uh, the way I start this is just by asking you a simple question, which is, where were you before we started working together?
So before I started working with Chris, I was experiencing quite severe anxiety. I hadn't had anxiety until the very sudden death of my husband in 2020, and it commenced with the very first anniversary of his death, leading up to that first anniversary. And by almost the third anniversary, the anxiety had become so bad that it was interfering with my life almost of every day in some way.
I remember, didn't you say to me that you got quite nauseous and sick in the street at one point?
I did. So I was at work one day and I had got to the point where my heart racing was probably the worst sign that the anxiety was on its way.
Mm.
And I had got to the point where I wasn't leaving home without some prescription medication the doctor had given me to make sure that it calmed my heart in an effort to stop the anxiety
Yeah.
getting any worse. But I was at work one day and the pills hadn't worked, and I had only just made it out of the building when I vomited in the street, which
Mm.
was humiliating to say the least.
Mm.
And on the walk home, I vomited in the street again. And I realized then that I was no longer in control of my life. And that was at least as concerning to me as the anxiety itself.
Yeah, not a fun time.
Yeah.
And what did we do together that helped?
So Chris started with a really great phone conversation and followed that up the next day with a video call. And I remember very clearly telling him that I didn't actually think hypnosis was going to help me. But on the walk home that day, I thought I really have to do something about this. And I had started Googling solutions for anxiety because I didn't want to be medicated for the rest of my life. And I thought in desperation that maybe I could try something like hypnosis, but I said I didn't think I would be able to be hypnotized because I'm terrible at meditation. But Chris explained that the hypnotic state is that state that we often refer to as something like a flow state, where you're so engrossed in something that time passes without you realizing that it has actually been hours and hours that you've been engaged in something. And I do experience that flow state like most people. So I had some more confidence that maybe I would be able to be hypnotized.
Awesome.
I had 6 sessions with Chris. After the second session, when he taught me some techniques for controlling the anxiety through breathing, I was confident enough the very next day to try that technique, and it worked. And I must admit, I was quite surprised, one, that it had worked so quickly, and two, that I was then able to go to work without those pills for the very first time. And I never took them ever again with me anywhere. And I've never actually taken them ever again because in the few times that the anxiety appeared again while I was having the hypnotherapy sessions, I was always able to control it with those techniques that I had learned. But I have absolutely no doubt that it went away and has never returned because of that course of 6 hypnotherapy sessions.
I love that. It's like putting your hands back on the steering wheel of your life, right?
It is.
Yeah.
I had really felt like I was no longer in control. And I guess I could only see anxiety having a big part in my life from that point forward. And unfortunately, many people get to that point and then struggle with other problems that are related to anxiety. They can't leave their house or they can't go to work at all. And I didn't want to be in that situation.
Yeah. And where are you now as a result?
So I'm in a good place in terms of my anxiety. It has never returned. I have never relied on that medication again because I've not ever had any symptoms. In fact, I think it was after the third session that I stopped having any kind of anxiety symptoms at all. It was just completely gone. And I know that sounds quite amazing, but Chris is amazing. He does amazing things, and I have no doubt that he can help anyone with their anxiety, because mine was intense and severe and completely debilitating. So if I can be helped, I'm sure that anyone can.
Well, thank you. And last but not least, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
The other thing that I would like to add is that if you or someone you know or love or both is experiencing anxiety in any way, whether it's very mild and they don't want it to get any worse, or it's already very severe, it really is worth trying hypnotherapy, and particularly hypnotherapy with somebody experienced as Chris in treating anxiety so effectively. I know it can seem like another treatment that will probably fail, but my experience has convinced me that hypnotherapy really does have an awful lot to offer. I've since seen Chris again for a different issue that has had remarkable success in a very short period of time. So I think hypnotherapy is really impressive.
Thank you, Vicki. So lovely. Always a pleasure.
Always a treat.